June 24th, 2024 Troy City Council meeting. This evening, we are honored to have Reverend Myra Moreland from the Troy First United Methodist Church to provide our invocation. So please rise for that invocation, and then we have a special guest to do our Pledge of Allegiance.
Would you all pray with me, please? Divine and sacred Creator, we come to you tonight just filled with gratitude for the amazing day this was today, for all the beauty that surrounds us here in our community. Oh, help us to be better at loving our neighbors. Help us to love our neighbors more deeply. Help us to remove all the barriers of intolerance and indifference so that we may be known as a community of justice and peace. We ask your blessing on all those who have gathered here on this council meeting. We ask your blessing on our community of Troy. For all these things we ask in grace and peace. Amen.
At this time, I'd like Alex Nelson and his sister Bella Nelson to come forward from Troop 1707 to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Alex and Bella, and thank you, Reverend Moreland. Weird twist of fate. My understanding is Troy First United Methodist Church is the sponsor for their troop, and that just happened to be coincidence. It's very interesting. All right. I'll officially call the June 24th, 2024 City Council meeting of Troy to order, and I'll ask for the roll call from Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Here.
Councilmember Brooks?
Here.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Krenga?
Here.
Councilmember Chanda?
Here.
Councilmember Gunn?
Here.
Councilmember Hamilton? Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Here.
We do have a quorum this evening, and if you're in the chambers, you can see that Councilmember Hamilton is joining us via Zoom, but he will just be here for discussion purposes only and not able to vote in any of the items that we'll be voting on this evening. So I'll move resolve that Troy City Council hereby excuses the absence of Councilmember David Hamilton at the regular City Council meeting of June 24th, 2024 due to medical reasons.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Gunn, that we approve the resolution to excuse the absence of Councilmember David Hamilton as read into the record. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Krenga?
Yes.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Councilmember Gunn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Yes.
Motion carries. At this time, there's a proposed resolution to suspend the rules of procedure for the City Council, Rule Number 7, proclamations and congratulatory certificates. So I'll move resolved that Troy City Council hereby waives rules of procedure for the City Council, Rule Number 7, proclamations and congratulatory certificates in order to approve and present a proclamation at the June 24th, 2024 regular City Council meeting.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Chamberlain-Krenga, that we approve the resolution to suspend the rules of procedure as read into the record. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Krenga?
Yes.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Councilmember Gunn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes, motion carries. So that leads us into certificates of recognition and special presentations. We have one this evening. C1 is a service commendation for City Manager's Department Office Manager Beth Tashnick. So Beth, I'll ask you to meet me down at the podium and we'll read it into the record. Not me. She's fine. I'm a mess. All right. I do want to read this service commendation, Beth, and I have a couple words I want to say also, but I'm going to read this first.
Okay.
Again, this is a service commendation for City Manager's Department Office Manager Beth Tashnick. Whereas Beth Tashnick grew up in Ypsilanti, Michigan, and graduated from John Glenn High School. She has fond memories of spending time and working on Sugarbush Farm, their family farm in Ypsilanti. She received a Bachelor of Science in Chemistry from Eastern Michigan University. And whereas Beth began her career with the City of Troy on February 26, 1996, as a clerk typist in the finance department. She was promoted to a data processing clerk on June 2nd, 1997, promoted to an account clerk on October 23rd, 2000, and promoted to an administrative aide on December 21st, 2002. And whereas Beth was promoted to office coordinator in the city manager's office on February 14th, 2011, and her title was changed to office manager on July 1st, 2017. In the city manager's office, Beth always provided excellent customer service and delivered accurate, prompt, and courteous assistance on policies, guidelines, and standard practices to internal and external customers. She provided advanced and varied administrative and technical support for the manager's office, which each year also included the annual budget. And whereas working with an exceptional and dedicated team, gaining an understanding of the entire organization, constantly learning from different people in different departments, and generally meeting and interacting with everyone are what Beth is most proud of. She always loved planning the employee summer barbecue and holiday parties. And whereas Beth will retire from the city of Troy on July 3rd, 2024, after 28 years of dedicated service and the utmost respect from the Troy employees, city council, residents, and the Troy community. And whereas Beth will enjoy retirement from the city by spending time with her loving parents, Joseph and Charlene, sister Alicia, sister Jessica and brother-in-law Jason, sisters Andrea and Darian, sister Amanda and brother-in-law Sam, and niece and nephews Addie, Silas, and Declan. She is also awaiting a new niece coming in October. And whereas Beth is also looking forward to finding more time to be creative, making jewelry and other art, explore authoring a children's book, as well as traveling for both leisure and to spread the word of God. Beth also graduated from Rhema Bible Training Center, licensed with Rhema Ministerial Association International, and is excited to continue her inspirational work as a worship leader at the Solid Rock Church in Hazel Park, Michigan, with her uncle, Pastor John Bullock, and his wife, Pat. Now, therefore, be it known that the mayor and city council of the city of Troy take this opportunity to express their appreciation to office manager Beth Tashnik for her professionalism and many contributions to the city of Troy for the betterment of the community. And be it further known that the mayor and city council of the city of Troy, city management, and the citizens of the city of Troy extends wishes of prosperity, good health, and happiness to Beth during her well-deserved retirement years. This proclamation is presented this 24th day of June 2024. Beth, you know, of course, is signed by myself as the mayor, all members of our Troy City Council. I'm going to give it to you, begrudgingly, but I want to say thank you for everything. Actually, let's take a quick picture first, then I want to say another word. So, yeah. One second. Yeah. I just want to add, Beth, this doesn't work in a proclamation very well, but Beth is she's the last remaining city manager's office employee from an era that was very difficult in our city hall. And it can never be overstated how instrumental you were in maintaining a calm and peacefulness among city staff, city council members, residents of our community when you were working through really awful times. And I know you always found the best of each day, and you did a really good job of that. But I can never thank you enough for the calming presence you provided in that office, continued to through a transition 5-6 years ago, are continuing through a transition now. And I just personally want to thank you for that, because you've been a key help to all of us on council. And I know those of us who have served a little longer know you through all those periods as well, and those who are serving with you more recently recognize what an amazing person you are. So Beth, thank you for your service. And that doesn't work well in a proclamation, but I wanted to add that because it really has been an important part of our city hall culture and atmosphere, and it's evidenced by the amount of people who are here from city staff who are here smiling and looking at you because they wanted to be here to celebrate all that you've brought to the city of Troy. So thank you, and I'm going to applaud you myself. Even though it's
I just want to say one funny story. When I first interviewed at the city in 1996, I told my interview panel that I was only going to be here probably a couple of years because I had other plans, other things I was going to do. And just the wonderful staff and council through the years and council currently, thank you so much for being so good to us and to our office. And it's been really nice to work with everybody, and not that I get to see you as often, as many of the other department directors, but it has been a joy and a pleasure to work here most of the time. And it's just, the staff here is incredible, and you have all won me over, and that's why I've been here for 28 years, just because our work family is very precious. So, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
That concludes certificates of recognition and special presentations. We have no carryover items this evening, no public hearings. I don't see that anybody has signed up for public comment for items on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. No postponed items, so we move on to regular business. I-1 is board and committee appointments. We do mayoral appointments first. I'd like to move resolved that the mayor of the city of Troy hereby appoints the following nominated persons to serve on the boards and committees as indicated. To the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, Joseph Byer and Joseph Vassallo for the terms expiring April 30th, 2027. And to the Local Development Finance Authority, LDFA, Jim Schmitz and Fabrice Schmilauskas for the terms expiring June 30th, 2028.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Brooks, that we approve the appointments of the 4 names read into the record and printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? Vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga?
Yes.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Councilmember Gunn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Motion carries, and we thank those 4 for their continued service to our community. That concludes mayoral appointments this evening. We have no city council appointments. Next up is I-2 board and committee nominations. I have no nominations, no mayoral nominations this evening, and my understanding is there are no city council nominations either. So we'll move on to I-3, request for closed session. Be it resolved that the Troy City Council hereby authorizes city management to amend, no, sorry, that's I-4. I-3, be it resolved that the City Council shall meet in closed session as permitted by MCL 15.268C, Troy Command Officers Association, and Troy Fire Staff Officers Association, as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga, that we approve I-3, request for closed session, as read into the record and printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? Vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Councilmember Gunn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga?
Yes.
Motion carries. We will, at the conclusion of the public portion of the agenda here, we will recess and pick back up in closed session, where I anticipate that we'll adjourn for the evening from in there. Next up is I-4, fiscal year 2024 budget amendments, and that'll be introduced by our controller, Deanne Irby.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to briefly discuss the 2 amendments before you. Each year, at the end of our fiscal year, we review our finances, the budgets to actual, and generally, we're pretty conservative and right on track. We do have 2 for you this evening to consider. The first one is being a transfer of $20,000 from general fund to our transit fund. Just a note that we are working through the city attorney's office with Amtrak to renegotiate that contract to assist with those fees in the future. The second and final amendment is just within the Community Development Block Grant Fund. It's $20,000, and we're moving it from the home chore and the federal revenue offset, so there is really no bottom line change to that. It's just a reallocation of money within that fund. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you. Any questions? Someone like to move the resolution? Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick.
I'll move I-4 fiscal year 2024 budget amendments as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick, supported by Councilmember Chanda, that we approve I-4 fiscal year 2024 budget amendments as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Gunn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga?
Yes.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you so much.
That concludes regular business this evening. Next up is the consent agenda. I'd like to pull J5, City Manager Employment Agreement, for further discussion after the remainder of the consent agenda. Anyone like to pull anything else or move that resolution? Councilmember Hamilton usually does it, but he's not here. Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
I'll take a stab at it. I'm used to Councilman Hamilton doing it. I'll move all items on the consent agenda as printed except for item J5, which we will discuss after the vote.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick, supported by Councilmember Chamberlain Kranga, that we approve all items on the consent agenda except for J5, which we will discuss after the vote. Any discussion?
Mayor, if I may.
Sure.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember
Yeah, I
Hamilton.
just noticed there's quite a few interesting things in this consent agenda that I wanted to point out, and maybe city staff can comment on the bike repair installation. We're getting a grant to add more bike repair stations throughout the city. Could city staff kind of sum up to residents what currently is out there and what this will do? And there's also quite a few kind of procedural items regarding the Rochester Road repair. I get lots of questions on that, so we'll continue to see these as we acquire land along Rochester Road to facilitate the rebuild that's going to happen in the next year. So that's what I got.
Was there an ask for specific information there, or was it just a commentary? I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, I was just asking, could city staff just describe the bike repair stations, how many we currently have, how many are going up, and that we're going to get a $200,000 grant to add a few more to the city. I know we got a lot of passionate bicyclists that come and speak at city council, so I'm sure they'd like to know.
City Manager Bruner, I see Dennis Trantham has stood up. So, Dennis, you want to come forward?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I can speak to the bike repair stations. The engineering department approached me with the opportunity for a grant, looking at what can we do for maybe alternate means of transportation. So what I looked at was where can we put bike repair stations that made sense on property that we currently own. So we currently have 2 bike repair stations right now. They worked out pretty well, and we're going for, I think, 22 more. So they'll be in major parks, major city buildings, a couple at Bowen Park to catch Northfield Parkway as well as Crooks. So that's kind of what we're looking at.
Great, thank you. Appreciate that. Councilmember Chamberlain Kranga, we're out of process a little bit if we're asking questions. I just realized that, but go please.
I know, and it's kind of a question, but I'll try to make it as a comment. So just to point out to folks, because I've noticed this, at the Troy Farm Complex, you'll notice that some of the buildings, they look in disrepair, and so, but as I was reading and reminded by reading the J4B, and it's the portion, there's a bunch of parts to that, but the Troy Farm Complex, I'm just trying to wrap my head around, is it also the farm? So I know the homes are coming down, but is it also the barn? Or is the barn staying?
Nope. So there's 2 barns that are remaining. We've referred them as a Gambrel Roof Barn and the Old Horse Barn. Those 2 barns will remain. There should be a map that's attached to the agenda that outlines the buildings. The residences are coming down, the temporary classrooms coming down, the old restroom facility is coming down, and there's a garage there also that's coming down.
Thank
And
you
it's
for
been a
that.
bit of a process. We've had to abate those properties for different hazardous materials.
Great, yes, and I found those. So just as residents may have questions, that there is, something going on.
So that's a great point, actually, and I actually had brought a comment up with Mr. Bruner earlier today about the Site 11 garage that's being taken down. I wanted to make sure it's very clear to the residents that that's coming down because it needs to come down, but there's no development plans for that
Correct.
site, and I'm afraid that if they see that process begin, they're going to think something happened. So if any of those residents who abut Site 11 right now are here or are watching, know that that building's just coming down because it needs to. It's at this point likely a danger, and it
Yes.
should be removed, but there's no development plans for that site, and after last year's interactions, I don't want them to be scared. And then Councilmember Hamilton also asked about the Rochester Road. I know there's a couple of, City Attorney Bloom, you want to talk about that?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. You will see something that we haven't had to do in quite some time, but we're hoping to acquire the necessary parcels without needing to go through the condemnation process. However, in the event that we do need to go through condemnation, the proposed resolutions do authorize that, so that we can be able to acquire those parcels so that we can obtain the funding. I would just indicate, however, that it's an 80-20, so we're only paying 20%. The rest of it is federally funded.
Thank you. All right, thank you. Any other discussion on those consent items? All right, the vote, Ms. Dixon?
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Craig?
Yes.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Councilmember Gunn?
Yes.
Motion carries. If you're here for an item on the consent agenda, except for J5, all have been approved. Next up, so J5, maybe a little dramatic to pull an item, I understand that, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about the city manager employment agreement within the bounds of what I'm able to discuss. My biggest concern, and the reason I wanted to talk about it, is meeting after meeting, we've been pushing this back to the next meeting, and these past 2 times, I've been getting a lot of questions from residents as to why we're doing that, and I don't have a great answer for legal purposes, except I will say that contract negotiations are continuing on both sides of the coin, and that is part of the reason that we're doing this. But I guess I have a question initially for whether it's the acting city manager or city attorney, or I'm not sure who to ask exactly, but I would like to potentially amend this to have the date be further set out, because I don't want to do this every meeting. And I don't want to create a scenario where that feels uncomfortable for anybody, but on the flip side, it's being perceived by certain people in the community that there's something wrong. And it's not the relationship that's wrong, but I do believe there's a little bit of process that's out of whack here. And part of that is when you have 7 of us trying to negotiate a contract, and we're unable to meet constructively to do so. And based on what I've understand from conversations with council, I don't think there will necessarily be a contract available for the next council meeting on July 8th. And I would be more comfortable amending this resolution to either set out a couple of meetings in the future, maybe the 2nd July meeting, or I guess my ultimate question is, do we need to continue to have this resolution passed each meeting, and why? I'll start with city attorney.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So no, you do not have to continue to, it does not have to be on the next meeting. You can have a resolution, you can amend the resolution, and it can be for a date certain. That could be, upon the completion of the contract negotiations with our outside labor council, or it could be to a date certain. So if that's the preference of the council, that certainly can be amended.
Well, I'm not certain if that's the preference of the council as a whole. I think here's the other problem that I want to talk about a little bit, and this is not about these parties or the party who we're negotiating with. This process is difficult and clunky, and I think people read into things unnecessarily so, and I'm more comfortable amending this resolution to state that it is upon successful completion of the negotiated contract, or something along those languages, because I originally thought having a date certain was going to be a motivating factor. I think it's become more of an irritating factor, at least for me. And I think we're all better served if we were to amend it to something that is...
Perhaps it could state it would be the first meeting after the labor attorney has prepared, has a final contract for city council review. So
I'm comfortable with that, but I also want to add carefully that I don't want Mr. Bruner or any city employees to read anything into this other than the fact that this is an important position in our organization, and it is difficult for 7 of us to have the opportunity to discuss the matters pertaining to a contract negotiation. We can either do it publicly or individually with our outside legal counsel. We can't meet in closed door, and we have not. We have not met independently and been able to talk about it as a group, and that's made it much slower than I think we anticipated. So I think I've heard from residents in the community that council's doing something wrong. I've heard from residents in the community that Mr. Bruner's doing something wrong. Neither of us are doing anything wrong. It's just a clunky process and one of the most difficult things, I think, is in this particular relationship. So I'm going to make a motion to amend the resolution J5 to state, resolved that the Troy City Council hereby postpones the presentation of the city manager employment agreement until the first meeting after a successful negotiation.
Completion of the negotiation process and presentation, and the labor attorney has submitted an agreement for council consideration.
That's my motion for amendment.
Support.
Is that you? Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Gunn, that we amend J5 to read as what was just read into the record. Discussion from council. You'll see how hesitant we are to even talk about this for a number of reasons. Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Just a little clarification. The reason we don't come together to meet is if we came together to meet, it would be a violation of the Open Meetings Act. It's not because we're unwilling, the seven of us, to meet, or that we don't want to, or that we wouldn't want to try to be efficient. I think if you're watching and you're new to this or cold to these discussions, I don't want that to be misconstrued. We're very serious about making sure we don't violate the Open Meetings Act. And so it is a cumbersome process for us with the outside labor attorney giving that input. And so it's clunky, not because we're incapable. It's clunky because it's clunky. It's just a difficult process.
Any other discussion? The vote on the amended, did I need to move a resolution to allow myself to amend it?
No, you didn't, but that's okay. So this resolution will be the only vote you need to have then,
Okay.
because you didn't move the other ones. So
Okay.
we're good.
All right, the vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga?
Yes.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Councilmember Gunn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Yes.
Okay, the amended motion J5 passes, carries. My closing 10 words on this, or maybe a couple more, is, again, all of us on council and Mr. Bruner and outside labor council, let's continue to work to get this done. All right, that concludes all items on the consent agenda. There were a lot. Next up are memorandums and future council agenda items. There are none this evening, so we move on to public comment for items not on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. We have 3 people signed up, so I will first remind everybody of our rules. You have 3 minutes to speak. Of course, when the light turns yellow, you have 1 minute left. When the light turns red, that's the end of your time. So with that in mind, we'll call on Mr. Walter Storrs.
Good evening, Mayor Baker, members of the Troy City Council. You probably recognize me as the Sylvan Glen 3 flood guy. And I don't want to kill the buzz, but we got to a good spot. But I felt obligated to come down and explain to you sort of how this happened. When I was working as a volunteer for the police lobby before COVID time, Mark Miller, who I'd worked with when I was on the Planning Commission for probably 10 years more, stopped by, said hi, and said, if you ever need anything, contact me. So I contacted him. I sent him an email. And we established a meeting at his convenience, at his point in time. So I drafted the letter, and I came down for the meeting and was abruptly told, he's not here. You can talk to the assistant city manager. Well, I've never been treated that poorly by anybody in my professional career, nor have I treated anybody like that. If I made a personal commitment and I wasn't available, I let them know. So I was really torqued. That letter was intended to be a draft that I sent personal to you, Mayor Baker. And what I did is, after I was so mad, I went down and I sat in the car and I thought for a while and I said, well, bag it. I'll send it to Mayor Baker. And I did. Well, that was a goof, because I believed that you would have it distributed to council and send it to staff. Didn't think that one through very good. So, from that point on, I'm operating that I think staff has the letter. Okay? They don't have the letter. I understand why. Anyway, after I was here the last time and you referred it to Mr. Brunner, I sent Mr. Brunner an email and I said, hey, I think it would be good if I'll come down for a half hour, I'll go over the letter and make sure you understand the points I've made. And so we did that. And we had a wonderful discussion, a neighbor of me with Scott Finley. Really like his forthright, straightforward answers. Really liked it. Anyway, that's the background of the whole thing and how it got off the rails. There's more ugliness in there, but it's more of a beer drinking discussion. If you all want to get together at Camp Ticonderoga, I'll buy the beer. So, thank you.
Motion carries. All right. Thank you, Mr. Storr. I happened to be in Missouri over the weekend. I did think of you because of your parting comment at the last meeting. So, there you go. Next up is Mary Lynn Bowen.
Hello, everybody. I'm Mary Lynn Bowen. I'm speaking for myself and April Church, who still has laryngitis, and Linda Bailey. We're officers of the Friends of the Library. The people in the city of Troy are unpredictable. They're very cognizant of taxes and tax rates. They have just approved $500 million for schools. So now, if we ask for a huge amount of money for civic center projects, this may put us at a tremendous risk. If you lump all the capital needs together, you are risking getting nothing. The library has the single largest need of any public building in the city. And it is the only building that has 300,000 visitors per year. With an all or nothing approach, the library could end up with nothing. Then what? At the rate we're going, the library is going to collapse. And then Troy will no longer have a library. So please, 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 start with the library. It will be a much faster process and a good catalyst for addressing further capital improvements in the city of Troy. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Dale Murish.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I had attended the study session on the library edition at 6 o'clock, similar to many other people. And $40 million is just like a phenomenal amount of money. I expected it to be high, but not that high. And I don't know what the cost for renovating the building would be to fix some of the problems that have occurred with it. But what I would do is renovate what's there and expand around as needed, and then maybe it'll be 30 million or 25 million needed for the bond. And I guess I'm agreeing with the previous speaker that says it should be only for the library. Once you start lumping other things in with it, and the other thing too is the firefighters' incentive, I think, should be studied to see if it can be enhanced somewhat from what it is now. And maybe it'll cost the city some money, but that's keeping our firefighters happy is very important since they're volunteers. And I guess when we're spending this money, we got to remember it's other people's money, tax money. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murish. That concludes those that have signed up for public comment for items not on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. Now is an opportunity for City Council and City Administration to respond or reply. Councilmember Gunn.
Regarding the library and the study session, this is just the first step. I know there's going to be more information brought forth by experts who have dealt with redesigning and developing or remodeling libraries. I think that we'll just wait and see what we are brought. It was just an idea as far as the additional capital improvements was brought up, but let's just see what the experts bring back and we can review it. And I believe at that point we can move forward with a decision.
Thank you. Additional comments? I'll just add to anybody who is just watching this meeting and heard those comments and is wondering what we're talking about. We did have a 6 o'clock special study session related to the library and potentially other civic center capital projects a little bit. That was should be in our YouTube channel already, and all of us spoke at length about all of these topics. So my guess is we're not speaking now because we just talked about it for an hour, but I urge our residents to watch that playback and to learn what our thoughts and comments are. And Mr. Gunn is right, we are just preliminary looking at some of these numbers, for example, or ideas. So no numbers have been set. There has been nothing determined. That was just an initial, not initial because we've been talking about it for several years, but it was a new initial opportunity to have a fresh look at all of these items. And I do expect that we'll be continuing to move at a much quicker pace now because it is front and center in our minds and all of our community members' minds. And I do hear you all with the comments that you brought forward because I think they are representing not just what you came to the podium with, but what swaths of our residents are also thinking on many levels too. So there's definitely a lot of opinions and feelings out there about all of these concepts, and I look forward to continuing the conversation with each of you and each of you, each of you, and hearing from our residents, which I'm sure we will. So, all right. There are no council referrals this evening, so we move on to reports. Does anybody have any comments on any of the reports? Councilmember Chamberlain-Crankle.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question related to O2B. And just to start with a comment, I think this is a great example, the league sports, the proposal that we had of what it means to bake in a real community engagement from the front end and to cause us to pivot and to cause us to really listen and adapt based on what we're hearing from the community. So getting this update that Flynn Park is a consideration, the question I have is around the, what is it, it's a former, better word, a dump site, landfill, thank you, Mayor. And I know that's been raised, Eagle's been consulted, and the League Sports Foundation, I guess they weren't concerned. My initial question was, they're a small kind of nonprofit. That seems to be a big undertaking to basically have to, I don't know if that means they're gonna have to do further remediation. Are they aware of what they're getting themselves into? And B, do they have that, that ability or capacity before we, potentially move forward with some kind of lease agreement? So could City Manager just provide more information?
I'll invite Public Works Director Kurt Bovenseep to address that. While he comes to the podium, I'll say in a nutshell, the landfill site's kind of a can of worms, so we don't know what we don't know yet, and I think which is why we avoided looking at that site in the first place. But now we're kind of rolling up our sleeves and investigating and seeing, just whether or not it's feasible.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. Patrick and Mike, you're right, they're a small outfit. They don't have a lot of experience, but they engage people that do have experience. So Jimmy John's Fields in Utica there was built on a brownfield. Frank Rewald and Sons, they're the ones that helped do that. They engaged them, so they're familiar with the site. They're also, asking a lot of questions, a lot of very important questions. They believe that because Flynn has a lot of the existing infrastructure, parking lot, utilities, that there's a cost savings to develop a site that doesn't have that, and those funds would be to remediate. We are confident that there will have to be some remediation on the site. Anytime you go below 18 inches below grade on a landfill, there's going to be required remediation, and their plans is to install new lighting, a new building. So they are aware of it. They aren't shying away from it, and I believe that they've consulted experts in the field that made them comfortable knowing that they can tackle this.
That's excellent. If I could ask a follow-up question. So will that require a brownfield plan, essentially, for them to develop it?
Not in a sense of brownfield that you think is when we come with developments for a brownfield redevelopment where there's funding available. Since this is public, I don't think it would qualify to get any funding, and I don't think the city would be interested in loaning the money because it's a private company coming in to develop land we already own. But there would be a lot of requirements through Eagle. We have a great contact, and she's actually a Troy resident, that she's been super helpful in knowing the steps that would have to be taken. So they would be dealing directly with the city and Eagle for any future development with that.
Great, thank you for the update.
Can I ask a follow-up? It's probably for city attorney, but moving forward with any kind of lease agreement, I'm imagining there'd be protections built in for the city so that somebody couldn't come in and start digging and then say, oh, I can't handle this, but I've just left you a major problem. I mean, that's obviously addressed in the legal agreement.
Absolutely. That's something that certainly we're aware that might be a possibility, as acting city manager has indicated. We're investigating at this point in time, so certainly we need to protect the city.
Okay, which I figured we would. Any other comments on that report or questions? How about any of the other reports? Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick.
I was just wanted to mention the letters of appreciation. There are two there, one to the fire department from a partnering city that was appreciative of our fire department and its professionalism. And notable is one to the assessing department. When your assessing department gets a letter of appreciation, that's saying something. So kudos, of course, to everyone. But assessing season is a thing, and I know that staff worked very hard, so this is nice to see that there.
Thank you. Any other comments on the reports? All right, move on to council comments. Yeah, I think Mayor Councilmember Chamberlain-Craig.
For risk of losing my voice, but I just want to again, Beth, congratulations on your retirement, your 28 years. When I first started volunteering on different boards and committees, you're often a liaison because often you have to engage with the city manager's office, and that's when I got to know you. I guess that was back in 2016, 2017 or so. And I remember when I came back, when I was appointed to council, I remember seeing you, and it was like this warm hug, and you just made me feel like, yes, I've done the right thing by stepping up. And you just have always been that warm hug when I see you, or that, I don't know, just that sense of calm as well when we're coming with you with lots of questions. Many times you've stepped in when we've been in transition, and you do, Data, you're engaging a lot of residents, and you would be the one answering a lot of those resident emails and being that front face to residents. So again, I thank you, Beth. I'm going to miss you so much and just wish you all the best in your future. Many blessings.
Additional council comments? All right. We don't have anybody signed up for public comment for items on or not on the agenda for members of the public outside of Troy. We do have a closed session, so we will recess from here and pick up back in closed session.